Hi, I'm Rick Ufford Chase with Newport Downtown Development, and I wanted to bring a new conversation this morning with one of our more active volunteers in NDD. So I have Patrick Hurley with us, who's been active with NDD actually back since the beginning when we created what we now call the events crew. And I described that actually with my conversation with Sarah Chadburn in the last show. So just to give a quick refresher, that organization, that committee, began almost 3 years ago now and was kind of the underpinnings of the energy that we're putting into all kinds of events, but primarily right now focused on Winter Saturdays. And so, Patrick, I wonder if you might just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, how long you've been in Newport, the work you do, anything you want to share.
Sure. I have lived in Newport for 3.5 years now. My wife and I moved here from Montana via New Hampshire and settled up in Newport, and we love it here. We got introduced to NDD, I guess by word of mouth, and we're looking for things to do because we hadn't met anybody in the area or known anybody prior to moving here. So just wanted to get involved, and at the time she was teaching for a local school and I worked for a nonprofit in town.
That's what brought you here, was Carter's job, right?
Carter's job, yep, and then just kind of everything fell into place.
So tell me about the work that you do, like, because you brought a real work history yourself to the area, so maybe the work you were doing in Montana?
Yeah, so it felt like the Memphis-Magog area was particularly kind of compatible with my background. I work in environmental consulting, restoration work, land use planning, and done a lot of like water quality and fisheries habitat restoration work. And Memphis-Magog has this thing called the total daily maximum load, which is a regulatory requirement to minimize sediment and phosphorus loading. Part of the reason why we have algae blooms in the lake and other water quality issues. And so kind of fit really well. I had good depth of experience in addressing TMDL issues, and so kind of just started
say that again. TMDL stands for what?
Total maximum daily load.
And that's the amount of sediment and other stuff coming into the lake that shouldn't be?
It's the load of sediment that is both natural and anthropogenic, and we are working to reduce the anthropogenic load. So our
people created.
Yeah. So
I have to just translate.
Fertilizer runoff, road runoff, stormwater runoff. So we got to mitigate all that additional runoff that comes with development. And so we implement projects to treat stormwater, to reconnect floodplains, create natural treatment systems throughout the basin. So I work with a lot of the regulators at the state, work with a lot of landowners, municipalities, other nonprofits, conservation organizations, and keeps me very busy.
I'll bet. And that's all with Memphis-Magog Watershed Association?
Mostly, yeah. In the Memphis-Magog Basin, so more or less in Orleans County. I work for the nonprofit. I also have a small business that I consult for people outside of the basin or on items or issues in the basin that are not conflicting with the nonprofit's mission or purpose and intent. So
all right, so I know this isn't actually why we said you were going to come this morning, but it helped me when I better understood the project that you did over on the west side of the lake here last year. Could you just give a quick description of that, because it helped me understand how sediment impacts the lake and what you were doing to mitigate it?
Yeah. So that's that was a big project for us. There's a lot of concrete and steel, kind of a heavy civil infrastructure project to address stormwater runoff. So essentially we took an existing storm drain system that would otherwise just daylight and pipe straight into the lake and transport all that stormwater runoff directly into the lake.
Which includes road salt.
Road salt, fecal coliform and E. coli, nutrients, phosphorus, fertilizer, oil and grease, just dirt, just grit. So it used to straight pipe underneath the old teddy bear factory and into Prouty Bay, and right by the marina. And that was a wicked area for algae blooms and just for unsightly water quality conditions. And so we implemented a kind of a retrofit project. So we're now treating 125 acres of the Prouty Bay neighborhood, Farrant Street, Lake Road. Anything that drains down towards that area goes through a new storm drain that we kind of diverted out of the existing, and then it goes through a two-tier treatment system before discharging to the lake. And so that was a $500,000 project.
Wow.
The city of Newport now owns and operates that additional storm drain infrastructure, and it's removing over, let me get this right, 22,000 pounds of sediment per year and about 20 pounds of phosphorus.
Wow.
So pretty significant reduction. And that's, that's one end of the type of project spectrum we work. The other stuff is like natural resource projects, so wetland restoration, floodplain restoration, stream restoration, municipal road work. We do a lot of road drainage evaluations.
So a lot of your stuff is upstream, further from the lake, but in the watershed that eventually ends up down.
Yeah, we catch some flack because we don't have a ton of projects right on the lake, and there's kind of a couple reasons for that. One is there's not that much room in Newport to work. A lot of things have been built up. It's really hard to squeeze infrastructure projects in between existing development. It's also very expensive. The other part is that once it's in the lake, there's only so much that can be done. It's more effective to work upriver, treat that runoff before it makes it to the stream or to the receiving waters, and then all the way down to the lake. So we work up in the headwaters to try to address the issues from the top down.
Gosh. All right, I could geek out on this all the day long, as you know. I'm fascinated by it. But let's go back.
Okay.
And one of the things that makes you a very unique volunteer with Newport Downtown Development is that you came with this kind of crafted idea for Tipsy Talks. So can you describe what Tipsy Talks are and what your experience has been the last couple of years trying to get them off the ground here in Newport?
Yeah. First off, I can't take full credit for Tipsy Talks. I stole that idea.
We call it R&D in Newport.
R&D, sure.
Rip off and duplicate.
Poetic license to borrow. I've always been comfortable talking in front of people. I grew up in a big family. That's probably part of it. During grad school, we used to have these weekly Thursday night bar sessions, pretty much, where we would reserve this back room in this pub, this sports bar, and we would give our talks on whatever science publication that we wanted to share with the group, and we'd really dissect it, and there'd be beer and pizza, and so it would get pretty loose and informal, and it turned into this kind of just kind of series of lab talks. And then when I took a job and was in Wenatchee, Washington, I would go up to Leavenworth, which is this really bizarre town. It's kind of like a Disney World town in the sense that everything has this German Alps vibe. Even McDonald's is built to look like a German Alps villa. And in that town, I was invited, or I attended one, and then was invited to give a Tipsy Talk. And it was this really, bootstrapping event series where a local bar would just find somebody to come in and feed them two drinks, get them kind of loosened up, and then set them loose on the crowd and the audience, whether the people were there for that reason or not, and they would give this kind of 30-minute, 40-minute tale story.
Largely unscripted, right?
Oh, totally unscripted for the most part. Some people are nervous, so they like to have it scripted, but really it's supposed to be off the cuff. I like to compare it as like a hybrid between the Moth Story Hour, the TED Talk, and Drunk History. So it's kind of like this, you can take it a couple different ways. And I really had a blast attending them, both attending them and hosting them. The first one I heard was about this former CIA interrogator, and he's like half drunk up on stage, reading everybody's body language and dissecting them in front of their peers. It was really fascinating stuff. And so when we all got together at NCDD, we didn't even know any of the people around the table really. We were brainstorming ideas, and this one series that I was involved in, Tipsy Talks, really has this kind of cult following. And I've actually seen other places and other kind of circles have the same idea. I used to go to these pub talks, which were more about ecological restoration at a bar, and so there's a lot of different iterations of it. And so we kind of adopted one for the NEK series. And other than just being fun and social, it's really like an effort to get locals out of their house in the middle of the week in the dark winter.
So it happens on Tuesday nights?
It's on Tuesday nights. We love alliteration, Tuesday Tipsy Talks. And we're at Jasper's and Parker Pie this year. Parker Pie has been very loyal and supported us each year. This is now our third series, third winter. and Jasper's is, very local. It's very central. Parker Pie is great because it gets us down south part of Orleans County, a little bit of Caledonia. But Newport is really also great because it draws people from Morgan or Jay that wouldn't otherwise drive all the way to West Glover. And also some people can walk down to Jasper. So we've got, I believe, seven different events this winter.
Starting when?
Starting January 7th, right after New Year's Eve.
And it's every 2 weeks?
Every other week, every other Tuesday, starting on the 7th. So 7th, 21st, whatever February looks
and then
like.
It goes, right. But
Yeah.
basically first and third Tuesdays?
First and third Tuesdays, more or less. It starts at 6:30. This year we're trying a new approach where we got a lot of feedback that like 45 minutes is a long talk. And so now we're looking at doing kind of 2 to 3 hot, fast sessions, right? So we're getting 20 to 30 minutes a piece, and we're packing 2 to 3 in versus 40 minutes.
And doing 2.
Yeah, you got to give people a chance to go get a refill on their beer, to go pick up their slice, to go to the bathroom, stretch their legs. And it also kind of helps us corral the speakers into like really consolidating that talk, making it concise, making it, a little bit more to the point and less of a wandering stream of consciousness, which we love, but, again,
Tightening it just
tightening
a little.
it up just a little bit. Yeah.
So just so everybody knows, I'm told by Brian Marovich, who does all of our website content work for us for Newport Downtown, tells me that now all the Tipsy Talks are up on the events calendar on discovernewportvt.com. So you can find them there. And we'll, of course, be doing regular updates on our Facebook page as well, which is under Newport Downtown Development. So you'll be able to find information there.
Yeah.
So maybe can you name like the 2 or 3 favorites that you've had over the last 2 years?
Yeah. Last year we had a really great wrap up to the series. We had Kelly Stuber from Sibling Reverie and a couple other local music outfits and groups. She saved my bacon, honestly. Like, we had a cancellation last minute due to illness, and I had called her up and I said, Kelly, I know you said you're interested in giving a Tipsy Talk. How about 3:30? It's 3:30. How about in 3 hours you show up and do this? And she didn't have any like supporting documentation or a slide deck or anything like that. She didn't have much time to think about it, but she gave up. She gave this incredible talk about her own story of navigating mental health and using music through that process. And then we heard this live rendition of an amazing pop song, courtesy of Kelly, in a bar, no supporting music, instruments or anything. And it was really superb, and it really kind of drove home the point of Tipsy Talks, and where it's like, let's just connect with each other. Like, we may be strangers now, but in an hour, you'll know a lot more about me, and you can connect with me. And when I see you in the grocery store, you'll nod and wave, and we'll know each other from now on. So that was a really kind of moving talk. And other couple favorites of mine have been Tim Daly from Joshua House and from Thai Restaurant. Tim is just a natural comedian and host, MC, whatever you want to call him. He's probably a jack of many trades. And he's a riot, Anything you get him talking about,
it doesn't matter what the topic is.
A snake crawling up his toilet, or working at a flower shop owned by the mob. It's like really, really hilarious stories. And we've had a lot of my friends relatives, like uncles and aunts, who were like, hey, we got this series and you always tell great stories. Would you do this? And so it's kind of spreading out like wildfire through all these different little veins. And we're catching a really cool mix of people. We've got some folks coming down from Stansted, Canada this series. We got some folks coming up from Waterbury. So we're drawing some interesting speakers, and really want to keep the series engaging, but also varied. We don't like to hyper focus on anything.
Yeah, one of the things I've most appreciated, I've made it to, I don't know, a third or half of them overall. And one of the things I've so appreciated is just how diverse the characters and the stories are. They're all over the place. Politically, they're all across the map. And people come at it very different ways. I think the first one I heard was a young woman who had been to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And she had written these stories that she read.
Maggie, yep.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was just super powerful.
Yeah, we've had like total total musical performances, not like an open mic, but like, you know, a speaker presented like their whole journey in the music industry, the performing arts industry, as, you know, a theater person, as someone who has literally engineered and designed and built a new novel instrument, to like Maggie, who essentially read her short stories that she had written a year or two before. We've had people do, you know, theremin performances. We've had, you know, like,
Colin. It makes me think of Collins too.
Yeah.
What that he did on his
Corporate
job at Walmart.
Corporate interrogations. Like, I mean, that was fascinating and a little startling. You know, we've had wild adventure stories, international traveling, historical accounts. You know, it really, we don't try to, or we actively try not to curtail the topics.
Right.
There's a few ground rules. One is no politics, no kinks. That's about it. You know, we are in a bar, so you don't have to really watch what you're saying. Although Heather McEwen does record some of them, so be careful what you want memorialized on YouTube. Yeah, it's a weird exercise for me in the fall. You know, chasing these people down, figuring out, all right, who's serious, who's not, who's thinking about it, who's fully committed, and then when you get these stories and these titles, you're like, Jesus, how do I pair these up?
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of times it's complementary themes that all pair together, or it's like polar opposites. You know, some of them are like, you know, joy tears, and the other ones are like horror or sadness tears. And it's like, these are actually really complementary stories. They're both really heavy, but for different reasons. Let's pair these up. But who should go first?
Right.
Do you want to end on a good note?
Right.
Or do you want to end on a bad note,
right.
or a sad note? So it's a little bit of a group think in terms of like, okay, how do I cater to an audience who I don't know how they're what they're comprised of? So it's a crapshoot. Yeah.
Love it. All right. So the first one is January 7th.
Yep. January 7th.
At what time?
6:30 p.m. at Jasper's Tavern in Newport on Main Street. I'm starting this thing where I'm gonna do these like 5 or 8 minute kickoff stories, just like a rapid fire story, just to set the stage. You know, shake off the cobwebs, introduce the series. The other thing I like to do is, a lot of the people who are speaking this year have never actually been to a Tipsy Talk. And so it's like, okay, let's just give you a sense of what a really quick version would be. And then we're going to hear from Kim Prangley and Kelly Stuber again. Kelly's got kind of follow-up to her last season ender, and Kim's going to tell us about the Stone Circle creation story up in Stansted.
Fabulous. Well, thank you all for tuning in. This will be our last episode of the year for Newport Connects, and we're so grateful for all of the support we've received from NEK-TV over the last several months as we kicked this program off. And we're grateful to you, Patrick, and to all the volunteers who have made Newport Downtown Development go for the last year. And we look forward to 2025.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Appreciate the airtime.